last night, the triumphant return of the product herself.
Because you is part of the problem. You're lying to the people, and you're supposed to be looked upon as a person we can count on.
It was supposed to be a coronation, a triumphant return for the self-proclaimed queen of the WNBA. Angel Reese, the Bayou Barbie, was walking back into her kingdom, expecting the deafening roar of adoring fans and a hero's welcome. Instead, what unfolded was nothing short of a public execution of her carefully crafted image, a nightmare played out on live television that culminated in a moment so shocking, it has sent tremors through the entire league. After a gut-wrenching loss, reports began to flood social media of furious fans, completely fed up, pelting her with garbage as she tried to make her escape off the court. In that moment, the tough, unbreakable persona she'd sold to the world finally shattered, replaced by the heartbreaking image of a fallen starlet, brought to tears by the very people whose loyalty she took for granted. How did the WNBA's supposed savior end up here, dodging trash and hiding her face in shame? The truth is a twisted, cautionary tale of unchecked ego, calculated abandonment, and a fan base that finally and brutally snapped.
You made so many people that squeezed in, just a mere 3,000 people short. Angel Reese is the most blocked player in the WNBA.
Her grand comeback was meticulously hyped to be a cultural event, the kind of spectacle that would prove she was not just a player, but the undeniable center of the basketball universe. The narrative was set, a sold-out Winrust arena, tickets being scalped for triple the price, and fans lined up for blocks just to catch a glimpse of their queen. But the reality that smacked her in the face was cold, empty, and unforgiving. When Angel Reese stepped onto that court, she wasn't met with a thunderous ovation. She was met with the cavernous echo of thousands of empty blue seats. The arena, which holds a respectable 9,500 people, saw a dismal, almost insulting attendance of just 6,724. That's more than 2,700 empty seats, a silent but brutal rejection from the city she claimed to own. It was less like a pro-level marquee event, and more like a Wednesday night bowling league. For a player who had boldly declared she was the reason the WNBA was surviving and thriving, this was more than just a poor turnout. It was a direct and humiliating slap in the face. Caitlin Clark's preseason games had more electric energy. The empty seats weren't just a sign of low ticket sales. They were a powerful message from the fans. Your act is wearing thin. And it was just the first scene of a nightmare that would only get worse.
You send me a few pictures and most sections seemed to be filled. It wasn't a sellout, but there was supposedly over 19,000 people in attendance. Of course, it's easier to draw a decent crowd when tickets are selling for $3.
Angel Reese finally made her way back to the court.
So why the chillingly cold shoulder? Why did the fans who once cheered for her decide to stay home? The answer lies in Angel's great disappearing act. Fans, and reportedly even her own teammates, have grown exhausted by her most predictable and damaging stunt, vanishing without a trace whenever the team is struggling, or her personal hype begins to fade. She walks out on the Chicago sky with no warning, no public statement, leaving everyone in a state of confusion and betrayal. When the questions inevitably mount, her go-to excuse is always the same, a vague, mysterious back injury. But the fans aren't buying the story anymore. The timing is always far too convenient, always following a tough loss or a poor individual performance. They see the pattern for what it is, quitting when the going gets tough. The sentiment online is brutal. Fans believe her back isn't broken from carrying the team. It's broken from carrying the enormous, crushing weight of her own ego and hype. This repeated pattern of bailing has incinerated every bridge of loyalty she once had. Fans pay their hard-earned money to see a star, a leader who fights through adversity, not a ghost who only materializes when it's convenient for her personal brand.
Only 6,724 fans showed up to the Wintrust Arena. Yeah, it holds about 9,500 fans, so we're talking roughly 3,000 fans away.
And that brings us to the very core of the problem, the poison that has seeped into her career. Many believe Angel Reese isn't truly playing for the Chicago sky. She's playing for Brand Angel, for Instagram, for her next lucrative endorsement deal. Every possession on the court feels less like a strategic basketball play and more like a carefully rehearsed pose for her next social media post. This brand over everything mentality spiraled into a new realm of perceived delusion when she publicly announced her dream of launching a signature shoe to compete with Michael Jordan's iconic Air Jordans. In her own words, she said, "Just like how they wear Jordans everywhere, I want people to wear the Angel Reese ones everywhere." It's an astoundingly bold statement from a player who can't even get her own team's arena to 75% capacity for her much-hyped return. Michael Jordan built a global empire by being an undisputed champion, a relentless competitor, and a cultural phenomenon for decades. Angel Reese has built her brand on fiery social media captions, Met Gala appearances, and tough girl antics that are already losing their luster. Fans see this massive jarring disconnect between her ambitions and her reality, and it doesn't inspire them, it infuriates them.
She said, "I'm so happy to be back playing the game that I love." All right. It was literally only 3,000 fans away from being standing room only.
The whole world is wondering, where in the world is Batman? I'm joking. I want to know, are Chicago Sky fans, women's basketball, WNBA, Angel Reese fans?
Of course, fans might have been willing to forgive the colossal ego if she delivered a legendary performance on the court. But she didn't even come close. Her comeback game was an unmitigated disaster, a painful spectacle that ended in a 94-88 loss to the Seattle Storm. All the drama, all the anticipation, all for another big L in the loss column. On the surface, her stat line of 19 points and 7 rebounds might seem respectable to a casual observer. But anyone who actually watched the game saw the ugly truth beneath the numbers. Angel Reese currently holds the deeply embarrassing title of being the most blocked player in the entire WNBA. It's not a fluke, it's a glaring weakness. Defenders have her number, easily timing her predictable drives to the basket and swatting her layups into the stands, turning her into a walking, breathing turnover machine. Throughout the game, you could hear the collective groans from the crowd as she clanked easy, wide-open shots and forced ill-advised plays that completely stalled the team's offensive momentum. Her body language was even worse, screaming a toxic combination of arrogance and apathy. There was constant eye-rolling after a missed pass, shrugging her shoulders at her frustrated teammates, and a smug smirk that suggested she was above the unfolding disaster. She wasn't leading a team, she was the star of her own one-woman show, and it was getting relentlessly booed off the stage.
And it looked like the Indiana Fever front office is caught red-handed, lying to reporters. And it looked like more footage has been released as to the Indiana Fever actually exposing when this injury happened, man. So they saying that the injury happened around August the 7th. Part of the problem, you're lying to the people, and you're supposed to be looked upon as a person we can count on for credibility and to keep it transparent with the fans.
Perhaps the most damning indictment of her impact, however, is what her return did to her own teammates. It wasn't just that she played poorly, it was that her presence seemed to be a poison that infected the entire team's chemistry. In Reese's absence, rookie phenom Camila Cardoso had been unleashed. She was flourishing, finally finding her rhythm and evolving into a dominant, confident force for the Sky. With Reese off the court, Cardoso's points per game had reportedly jumped from 8 to nearly 15, and her field goal percentage had skyrocketed. She was playing free, and the team was responding. But the very moment Angel Reese stepped back on the floor, it was as if a switch was flipped. Cardoso looked muted, hesitant, and relegated back to a secondary role. Her numbers immediately plummeted. It was as if Reese's gravitational pull of needing to be the center of attention sucked all the oxygen out of the room, forcing everyone else to shrink. Imagine being the supposed in-star, whose return actively makes your best young players worse. That isn't leadership. It's an unintentional act of sabotage wrapped in a designer headband. And as that final buzzer sounded on yet another preventable loss, the collective frustration that had been simmering in the arena finally and violently boiled over.
She's experiencing a back injury. Her back is literally hurting. And is it because that she is tired of carrying the weight of the Chicago Sky on her back?
And here that she expects to sell shoes in a way that Michael Jordan did.
You cannot tell the story of Angel Reese's fall from grace without acknowledging the massive shadow that looms over her, the Caitlin Clark phenomenon. This isn't just a rivalry, it's a clash of philosophies. On one side, you have Clark, who despite being the biggest star in the sport, carries herself with a head-down, team-first mentality. Her focus is singular: win basketball games. On the other side, you have Reese, whose focus often seems split between the court and her brand. This contrast was put under a microscope during the infamous incident where Chicago Sky player Chennedy Carter delivered a cheap shot hip check to an unsuspecting Clark. While the world condemned the unsportsmanlike play, television cameras caught Angel Reese on the sideline, jumping to her feet and clapping enthusiastically for her teammate's foul. To millions of viewers, that single act revealed everything. It was seen as a celebration of dirty play, a petty and immature response to being overshadowed. While Clark took the hit and moved on with professionalism, Reese's reaction cemented her role as the villain in the eyes of many. It showcased a fundamental difference in character that fans have latched onto, and it has made the public's defense of Clark and their criticism of Reese that much more intense.
Has she trademarked that yet, Bricklayer Barbie? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, seriously. if I'm Cardoso, I'm wanting out of Chicago. I'm getting the hell out of Chicago. And just like clockwork, Angel comes back, Cardoso's numbers go down.
This all culminated in the final soul-crushing moment of her disastrous comeback night. As Reese began her walk of shame off the court, the scattered polite applause was completely swallowed by a tidal wave of boos. The anger in the arena was thick and palpable. Then, it reportedly began. A single crumpled-up popcorn box flew from the lower stands, landing a few feet from her path. Then, a wadded-up wrapper. Then another piece of miscellaneous garbage. It wasn't an organized assault, but a spontaneous, ugly eruption of disrespect from a fan base that felt completely and utterly betrayed and ripped off. Eyewitnesses claim that for the first time, the impenetrable Bayou Barbie facade cracked wide open. Her signature confident smirk vanished, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated shock and hurt. She quickened her pace, her eyes locked on the tunnel, desperate to escape the public humiliation. Sources close to the team later reported that she completely broke down in the locker room, sobbing uncontrollably, completely devastated by the raw personal nature of the rejection. The tough girl was gone, and all that was left was a young, overwhelmed player, finally facing the crushing consequences of her own hype. The haunting image of Angel Reese being pelted with garbage, whether by a handful of angry fans or an entire section, marks a dark and potentially irreversible turning point in her career. It brutally exposed the fragile, hollow foundation upon which her entire brand was built. Fans don't want a part-time passenger who bails at the first sign of turbulence. They want a full-time driver who can navigate the storm. They want a leader who inspires, not just a social media influencer in a basketball jersey. The burning question now is whether she can ever recover from this. Is this the rock-bottom moment, the brutal wake-up call she so desperately needed to recalibrate her priorities and focus on the game? Or is it the beginning of the end for the Bayou Barbie, a cautionary tale of a star who flew too close to the sun on wings made of hype and ego? Has she finally and permanently pushed her fans too far? Let me know exactly what you think down in the comments below.